Welcome back to another episode of Hospitality Unpacked. Today, I'm joined by Justin Gelband, a seasoned professional in the law enforcement industry, as well as security for high-level events. Today, we'll talk about all levels of security and events and things related to that. Due to privacy and security reasons, we can't go into too much detail on certain things, but it is going to be a great episode. So thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe, and let's get into it. Justin, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Noah. Thanks for having me. We've talked about doing this for a long time, and I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, me too. So kind of let's just start off by um how did you get into being a police officer and also the hospitality industry and things like that?
Sure. Long story short, right after my bar mitzvah, that's kind of the moment I got into it. I started working for the catering company that did my bar mitzvah, and I had the will to work and wanted to do something, and he saw that, took me under his wing, and I was bussing and handling tables at bar mitzvahs at 13 years old. To answer the other side of the question, the law enforcement side, I've been there for 13 years, and it's a rewarding job. Um, Both worlds have come back together, which is kind of cool. Um, and I really enjoy both, so being able to do both is great.
Yeah, definitely. And then I've worked with you on multiple events before. What like inspired you to start getting into those big level events and working at for security at those events?
Yeah, so these high level events need that balance between security and that fine touch of, even though we're working on making sure things are secure, there's other aspects of security that are even behind the scenes of that. And it's a very niche uh, role, but I've taken it on with a bunch of other great guys, and it's rewarding. You get to practice the empathy you have in the police world on a finer scale.
Yeah, definitely. And that's like another question I had. Like, how do you connect your work as a police officer and like kind of how do you like do you implement some of like the hospitality traits that you've learned from doing these events like into your daily career as a officer compared to like what like how you acted on during these events?
Yeah, I've always owned the role of uh, treating people as the way you wanted to be treated, and I take that into both sides of it. I take that to the police world, and I take that to the event space.
Definitely, yeah. And then I've seen you work in action, and you're not just always on security. So like, how have you been able to focus on other things besides security during these events? Because I know you are we're always all running around, and you're not always only focused on security. So how are you able to kind of manage both and help all wherever help is needed?
Yeah, you have to build a good team, right? And you got to rely on the people you're surrounded by, and that's how I've learned to do it. Many of the guys that I work with, I know without speaking words, will handle the thing that I've stepped away from. Um, you know, on the police side, you work with a partner, and they always have your back. It's the same in the event world. You expect the same level of care and quality on both ends of it. Um, if I see something out of place, I'm not going to step over it. I'm going to handle it. That's how I've lived my life, and it's how I put it into a perspective on both my personal side and my business side.
Definitely, yeah. And then how do you kind of manage like your security team by also creating like not disrupting like a welcoming and inviting atmosphere for the events?
Yeah, similarly to every other role in the event space, you want to be present, but you want to take a back seat. You're not trying to be in everyone's face, but you're keeping a watchful eye over everything. That's the real important aspect of it.
Could you maybe share, not without going into too much detail, obviously, but maybe like a story or something where you've been in maybe even just like a common emergency you've seen during events, and how did like your police training help you prepare for those situations?
Sure, it's not uncommon that events with hundreds of people, someone will have some sort of medical episode. And it's in my nature, both as a police officer and as a EMT and paramedic prior to my law enforcement career, to take control of the scene and manage it. A lot of the times, someone will get dizzy or sick or weak or whatever the scenario is, and many people will run around frantically and nervous, and being able to control a scene, calm it down, take, the necessary steps, and, make sure things are properly handled versus haptically handled are uh, a very common, unfortunately common thing that happens at these events.
Yeah, definitely. And then what are some like the biggest differences and challenges you've seen like working with like the hospitality staff versus like the security side of things, and then maybe like having to include yourself in the security aspects of different venues and things like that? Like anything like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of venues are technically like the third party, and they're very welcoming to another bit of staff that's willing to help, right? uh Nobody's too big to ask for help. I've learned that, and if you are too big, you're going to be unsuccessful. um and when you're managing a certain level of clientele, sometimes it takes a specific level of security to be there, and that's kind of our role, right? It is interesting blending the two, though, because on a day to day, my law enforcement is, there's a hierarchy, there's a order, there's a line, supervision, and that's kind of how things go. Where in the event space, like we were talking about before, even if you see something out of place, it may not be your responsibility, but it's something you are going to take care of, because at the end, forward facing, you want everything to look great, right? And it can't look great if you're going to walk over a piece of garbage or a piece of bread on the floor, or, simple things that don't require much effort, can get overlooked by someone who thinks that that's not their role.
Yeah, definitely. And then how could like hotel managers, event planners, or restaurant teams better collaborate with like security staff to create like a safer environment?
I think being willing to accept the help, that's probably the biggest uh, hiccup and hurdle we run into. It's the people that do it all the time, that feel that they don't need the extra help, um, versus the willing participant to the extra help. I Countless times will get there, and right off the bat, you know the outcome of the event, right? You know how you could see the projection, right? You could see that they're resistant to where they're going to put their people, where they're going to put our people. Long story short, it's like, when they're resistant to that help, we find it more difficult and less enjoyable to be there. And more oftentimes than not, when they're accepting of the help, it makes life much easier.
Do you think hospitality workers should go through more training and things like that for de-escalating situations and situational awareness?
Yeah, I think a lot of our, not so much on my side of things, but on the event space, event planner, the hospitality world should go through these de-escalation. You're every single day you're dealing with people that are spending an arm and a leg on an event, probably. And on top of that, this may be their first and only wedding, right? So the stress levels are very high. And regardless of whatever the situation, we were talking before about the medical call or whatever, like having the ability to de-escalate a situation or step foot into a situation like that, whether it be through a role playing during their onboarding, or during a whatever training process they go through, being able to de-escalate a situation that could stem from nothing, but missing a fork or a wine glass or not getting bread. Something so simple could change the outcome of an event really quickly. I think these de-escalation and crisis intervention type trainings are very important.
Definitely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Just
As
to
someone,
to to,
yeah,
to tap into that really quick, we've worked at events together for the same person, and I think that person we speak of has incredible crisis mitigation, and intervention. Everything she talks about is forward facing, right? And there could be a dumpster fire behind us. The client will never know, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly.
And it's amazing to see the team she's built, the team that we were talking before about having a good team that you can rely on. If she wanted to live her life in Panama for the rest of her career, she probably could, relying on the other people. It's not who she is, but she probably could.
Yeah, agreed. As someone actively working in both fields, how do you see the future of hospitality security like evolving in a way? Like with new technology, I know like when you do the work, you're not like monitoring cameras the whole time. It's more forward facing things, but like just like small security details that could improve over the next couple of years.
Yeah, I mean we've seen it since I've been doing these events. Switching to tablets, huge, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can have we have these lookbooks and these pages, hundreds of pages of books, and you put your book down and it walks away. There's a problem. Now I put it on a digital file. I share that digital file with the 3 points of contact that I need to share it with, and everyone has thousands of pages of information and the internet in a tablet, right? That's one. The You keep saying the word evolve. The evolve security system is incredible. It's not using metal detectors or anything like that anymore. It's these evolve systems, and you can literally in their database tell them what you're looking for, and that will pop up. I don't think it'll do organic things, but it'll do. You could choose size, dimension, metal type. You could choose a lot of variabilities of that.
Wow, that's
Um,
really cool.
so I,
Yeah.
I think technology is huge, but you know, I'm not going to get replaced by AI. It's a very useful tool. I don't deny that, but there's nothing like boots on the ground.
When you go into these events and you're working with the other hospitality professionals, is there any times or things when you like say your input or like you like this needs to get done and there's like pushback and it's like challenging to work out the details for making sure it's the most secure as possible, but then also the best for the guest?
Yeah, not often. Honestly, we have a coined phrase, verbal judo, that we use in law enforcement, and I believe with rather than forcing your opinion on someone, explaining it calmly and explaining why it's better for the overall good. I think that verbal judo takes a large role in speaking to other people. And as we've said already, like, I like to be treated the way I treat others. I'm not going to force something down your throat. But the reality is, if it's going to be a better outcome for the client on the end, we're going to make it happen. And if it does, if you're resistant, I'll explain to you why it's going to be better off. And at the end of that, I'm going to own my decision. If it fails, that's on me too.
Yeah, definitely. What's like one key lesson you've learned from law enforcement experience that's helped you in the hospitality world?
Hmm. Yeah, I think most of it stems from the emergency response aspect. As high level and high octane as these events start off, you have to pace yourself. You have to be able to break things down and manage them properly individually. You can't get overwhelmed. Things are going to inevitably go wrong. Nothing ever goes 100%, whether it's we're a few trays short or there's lipstick on a glass. Things are going to happen. It's the outcome and the way you handle those things that is going to affect the forward facing aspect of the event. And that's where I believe uh, my experience and history really helps things. Even I mean, it's not uncommon for me to leave an event and have to grab something. It's just you have to do it. You have to, and nobody else has to know about it. It just has to happen.
Yeah, definitely. And then what advice would you give to someone who maybe want to go into the law enforcement area, and then also work in hospitality, but then maybe just do hospitality or just law enforcement, like a couple pieces of advice for, just law enforcement or.
Sure. I mean, there's tons of opportunities in the police department, right? You could be an accountant first and then become a police officer and work as an accountant as a police officer. You can get into hospitality and get into community affairs in a large police department and do these things. There's people setting up events in the police department. There's people running events in the police department. There's lots of opportunity, and I think the greatest part about the police department is that opportunity. You get to help people in a different way. I think on the event side, we're helping people enjoy a memory, right? And in the police department, you're helping people enjoy their safety and their ability to feel comfortable going to events and parades, and you know, there's a lot of overlap, um, and I find both very rewarding, um, and I'm happy that everything's come full circle. We we have an opportunity to do these things and make people very happy, and I really enjoy it.
Yeah, me too.
Well, I mean, I really appreciate you taking me on, and I think it's outside the world of hospitality, that you normally interview and visit. I hope I didn't ramble too much, and I provided some insight to a cool little aspect of the hospitality world.
Of course. Thank you for joining me today, and thank you to everyone who watched and listened. Please like the episode wherever you're watching and subscribe. Thank you.